Nobody wants to make mistakes, especially when you're doing something like camping, where a mistake could potentially harm you in some way. Don't be paralyzed with fear, but it is nice to avoid mistakes. Learn from some of the ones we made. We're about to embarrass ourselves for the sake of your education. Keep watching. Hello, Darrell.
Hello, Yves.
As we talked about in another video that I will put somewhere here, in which we talked about 3 unconventional tips that it will be good for you to know, we said that we would talk about some of our mistakes. And those mistakes, fortunately, were not mighty mistakes. They weren't mistakes that
They're rather minor mistakes.
yeah, they didn't get us eaten by a bear.
No bear eating, no physical danger.
No.
We avoided man, bear, pig. And yeah, nothing that caused bodily injury.
Yes. But minor or major mistakes, whatever they are, it's good if you can avoid them. You're probably not going to avoid every single struggle. I mean, that's part of the game, part of the learning process. But we can help you avoid some of the struggle and maybe laugh at ourselves a little bit in the process.
First off, simple things. Arriving at camp too late. We have arrived at camp late before, and it has not been fun setting up in the dark or near dark. Guys, it is important. I stress. Please arrive at camp during daylight hours, if at all possible, especially if you're newer to camping. If you anticipate being there late, maybe reconsider your plan. It has been very frustrating setting up in the dark during cold weather or bad weather, especially if you're newer and you're not super fast and able to set up your tent and all of your gear quickly. What's your experience been like with that?
I don't like getting to camp too late. And I want to just mention here that Darrell and I, we don't like pushing it when it comes to lateness. I know that that is within some people's realm of possibility. Some people are cool with that. I'm not. We're not. Like we usually, if we're going backpacking or if we're going camping, we want to get to the park early. We want to get to the site early. We want to get to the trailhead early so that we know we have ample daylight hours before our final destination. I just want to say, I think people have different lengths for that because there are some people who are like, I'm good. I'm casually strolling. We've been at campsites that have multiple, sites for different people on them before. And there are people who get there later than us. And when they get there, I'm like, it's dusk.
Or dark, completely dark.
Or completely dark. The cryptids are about to come out.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to fight a cryptid while I'm trying to set up my campsite. But yes, for it to be cold, using your headlamp to
do everything.
And we're glasses wearers. It's already, the seeing situation is already difficult.
It's not great.
It just puts more strain on our eyes, and we don't get a lay of the land. So I think that's what matters a lot to us.
I agree.
Yeah, and you're so security minded. So it's like we get there and we don't know
what your surroundings are, what's close to you, what's far from you. Are there people, next to you that you can't see because it's dark and, you're not paying attention and you're just so focused on setting your own thing up that you don't realize that other people are already there or close to you. So yeah, getting a lay of the land, figuring out where water sources are, where you can go to the bathroom. All of these are valid reasons to arrive during daylight hours.
If you're on the edge of a ledge.
Yes, if you're camping dangerously on the edge of a cliff somewhere because you live like that. It's important to get there early and on time. And hanging out outside of your tent. You can still do that if you have some external lighting sources, but generally you're not going to want to do that if you've already arrived late and it's dark.
Well, I just want to caveat, we're not going to want to do that. Don't assume that other people won't.
Well, we're not going to want to do that. I'm not going to want to do that. And I know that a good portion of you all out there also are not going to want to do that. Some of y'all don't care. I'm speaking for the ones that may care. And as a new camper, you probably care. Plan to be there during daylight hours, set up early, and then relax.
This next one is slightly embarrassing. At least it was embarrassing for me when it happened. and it had consequences that we were unprepared for. Reading maps incorrectly. Okay. You might be thinking right now, how can you read a map incorrectly? Learning to read maps is a skill. We've literally taken classes on reading maps, learning how to understand the contours in maps, learning how to understand,
Land navigation.
but specifically when it comes to like getting a paper map, knowing what means, knowing where elevation's going to go up, knowing where the mountains are, things like that. Darrell, do you want to take this story or do you want me to tell the story?
You can tell the story. I'll just be more general before she tells the story.
Okay.
So one thing is, guys, not all maps are created equal, and then not all signage on the trail correctly corresponds to what is on the map. So the map may say something, but you're on the trail and the trail may not reflect what the map says. Signs get removed from the trail. If there was a storm, signs get knocked down. So what you may see on that map may not be reflected in real life. Some maps are very detailed, extremely detailed. They give you all the markers, all the points.
Mhm.
Some maps, it's just like your, 3-year-old nephew drew it and he kind of drew like a start point and an end point, and that's kind of all you got.
Or like the map we just saw is like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and the resolution's totally degraded, and the parts that were supposed to be colored in a nuanced way is just a blob of blackness.
Yeah.
And even when the park guide tries to tell you
Assist.
what's on the map, she doesn't know what's going on. So yeah, maps aren't always great. And I will say also that in this instance that I'm about to talk about, this was a paper map, like this was a hiking map, but this can also happen with car navigation, like vehicle navigation.
Yes.
So if you're ever traveling by vehicle and you're using a map, or if you're using GPS navigation, I mean, it's also just it's handy to know you're up from your down, you're north from your south, you know. It's handy to know how to read maps correctly. So, should I tell the story now?
Please.
This was many years ago. We were on a backpacking trail and we had a hike in to our site that wasn't super bad. It was probably like 3 mile hike in, but it was nice. It was in the Smoky Mountains. And the particular area we were in, we didn't have much elevation gain. I- From what I can remember, there wasn't much elevation gain. So it wasn't a very strenuous hike. It was probably just like a moderate hike going in, maybe easy to moderate, probably hike going in. Got to our site. First night was fine. And I think we probably only stayed 1 or 2 nights when we were there.
Yes.
So we wake up in the morning and we're ready to leave out, head back to the car. And we look at the map. We're like, okay, looks like we can go out this way. We're like, maybe we don't want to hike in. We don't want to hike out the same way we hiked in. So we'll go out a different way. And we're like, oh, this one looks like it'll be good. And it only says it's like 1.3 miles. I don't remember.
We don't remember the
I don't
exact
remember.
distance, but it was short.
Yes, it was short. And by the time we left, it was probably still morning, but maybe late morning,
It was maybe the afternoon at that
maybe the
point.
afternoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we might have hung around a bit because we knew that the hike out would be easy, or we thought we knew the hike out would be easy. And we start on this hike. It's beautiful. I'm enjoying the light streaming through the trees. I am loving the switchbacks, the sounds, all the greenery. Everything's going fine. I don't think it rained at all that day we were going out. It was a good temperature. It was nice. It was chill. We were relaxed. And we're walking, we continue walking. And we're like, this feels like it's more than 1.3 miles.
Mm.
Like I think we're past and we're not big step metric trackers.
No, we just keep going
It's
until it's over.
far. Yeah. And I remember distinctly getting to this part of the trail where it's a bunch of uphill stairs. Before we got there, we passed a guy who was going the opposite direction. And he was like, it's only uphill from here.
Yeah, he said it's all uphill from here.
You remember that, huh?
And he was right.
He was
He
right.
was very right.
But because it was funny because I really thought at first that he was kind of joking. Like,
I didn't.
because you run into those jokers on the trail, okay? It's some jokers. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I was like, maybe he's joking. Maybe he's serious. I don't know. It was really all uphill. I was unprepared. Were you unprepared?
I was prepared, but it was longer than we expected. Absolutely.
I remember though the downhills. I remember my toes hitting my toe box in my boots. So these boots were, I got them from a garage sale at REI. I mean, they were good boots, but they weren't the most comfortable. And shout out to REI garage sales, first of all. They no longer exist. I know they're resupplied now, but
Make garage sales great again. REI. Make garage sales great again. We miss them dearly. Please bring them back. We got a lot of great things from the garage sales in those glorious days.
yes, that's an aside. That's the conversation for another video. My point in saying that was that my toes were hurting. We were going fast down the downhills because we were ready for it to be over with, and we were very close to the parking lot again. And I remember somebody making a remark like, "Oh, you finally made it! You made it!" or something. And I was just like, "Oh my god, yes! I am so grateful we were done." My feet were hurting. I was so ready to take my shoes off, and I remember getting to the car, and it felt like the marathon was over.
Yeah, it was definitely a marathon. Felt that way.
But the thing about it is, it ended up being like 13 miles when we were expecting 1.3. I
Yeah,
remember it was like 13
I
miles.
think it was 11.
It was 11?
Yes, it was
I thought,
11 miles.
okay, that's not necessarily a distance we wouldn't do. It's just we weren't prepared to do that day. We weren't thinking that's how long it would take. So when at the end we realized we read the map wrong, we were like, we won't do that again.
And make sure to ask people if you're unsure on the trail. Just say, hey, how far away is the entry or exit point? Where's the parking lot from here? Ask them in minutes because they may say, oh, yeah, it's not too far. Not too far could be an hour, or not too far could be 10 minutes. So say, how long does it take? Or is it 10 minutes away or is it 40 minutes away? Which can be a very big difference if you're going uphill.
We were still on the correct trail. We just misunderstood the distance. We misread the distance. And I think that's a good point to bring out asking other people because it can be sometimes people are friendly on the trail and sometimes they're not. In the Southeast, where we hiked a lot and where we camped this particular instance that I'm talking about, people are waivers. They're people who drum up conversations. They're people who ask you questions.
You're good folk.
Yeah, I've typically not had any negative experiences when asking things or interacting with people on the trails here. So I think that's a good point. Unfortunately, it was two of us and we still read the map incorrectly. So two heads in this instance were not better than one.
Oh, we just didn't know.
We just didn't know. You live and you learn, and we've learned.
And you live and you walk more until you eventually make it back to the parking lot. Fun fact.
True.
When you go to the visitor center to get your map, assuming that there is one, just ask, what is the total time of this section that you're going to be hiking? Whether it's a loop or just an in and out, or just say, hey, me and so, or just me, or I'm going to do this part of the trail. How long is it going to take, round trip? And they can generally give you good information. They can say it's an hour or 2 hours.
It'll be an estimate though, because different people hike very different paces.
Yes, but they'll give you a ballpark to work with them. So just do your due diligence. Inquire. Be curious. And arm yourself with some knowledge so that you're emotionally prepared.
Yeah. And fortunately, we didn't get back to when we got back to the car, it was still dusk. Like there was still light out or right before dusk.
Yeah, we still had a little light. Another reason to start early.
At least for you people that aren't night hikers.
Yes, at least for those who are of that ilk.
Why do we sound like we're talking about a protected class?
The night hikers are a protected class, actually.
The night hikers are a special class that I can't get with.
Yeah, salute you to y'all.
I think that brings us to our next point. Not staking out our tent correctly.
Yes. It's not enough to just set up the tent. Staking out your tent is very important. I didn't think so at the beginning of it. Or I won't say I didn't think it was important. It was something I basically disregarded. I learned my lesson the hard way in Texas on a beach in a very, very, very windy area. And we practically got blown into the ocean.
So over dramatic in typical Darrell fashion.
It's pretty accurate.
That's not true.
We're in Galveston Island and didn't stake it out. And we have serious winds. And man, I just felt like I was just being ragdolled in that tent. I mean, if our bodies weren't in the tent would go in the ocean. I mean, our bodies were really the only thing preventing that wind from just sweeping the whole tent away. And I think we actually lost a stuff sack in Galveston Island. RIP that stuff sack.
It's somewhere ruined in the ocean with all that
Yeah,
plastic.
it's probably took out a turtle or two. I'm sorry, turtles. Hopefully not.
It was very windy that day in Galveston Island, but you're forgetting about a time earlier than that we didn't stake out the tent correctly. So Galveston Island was still years ago, but this was our very first backpacking trip ever. And we went to the Everglades the first time backpacking. This was in early 2019. Everything was new, essentially. And that was also during a government shutdown. But if you want to hear more about that story, let us know in the comments. And we will make another video about how we started camping, how we started backpacking, and you'll get to learn more about our journey into learning about it. But to stay on topic here, the wind and not staking out the tent correctly in the Everglades. Beautiful hike, loved it. We got to our destination after some ado. We set up for the night, and of course, this is on the beach itself. So we were actually on the ocean. So we set up our tent in the sand. We had set up our tent before. However, we didn't fully know what we were doing. And there is kind of an art to staking out tents, which I think I feel like I'm still a beginner in the art of staking.
She's being modest.
I feel like I am. But we didn't have the rain fly staked out correctly. I also don't think we had sand stakes. So this was a while ago, so I don't fully remember. But I'm pretty sure we were using the basic stakes that came with the tent, which are not, they're the like L-shaped hooks. And they're not the best stakes. We've upgraded our stakes since then. Either way, that thing was blowing in the wind all night long. It was so loud. We didn't stake out the rain fly fully. The rain fly is the part that goes over the tent itself that shields you from rain, of course. Also can give you additional privacy because there are mesh parts on the regular tent, and also gives you protection from wind. It has various purposes that are very important to setting up a tent if you want to be nice and cozier in your shelter and more protected. And we didn't set it up to the fullness of its capabilities.
Yes. More improvement needed to be done with our skill set in that point.
Yeah, so
we suffered because of it. And this leads into a larger point of knowing your gear, being familiar with your gear, practicing at home, just building your tent accurately, properly. So when you actually go outside into a foreign environment or even a familiar environment, you're proficient at it and you can do it with relative ease. We were not at that point yet. And so, yeah, we got beat up by the wind all night. We got kept up because the tent wasn't staked out properly because we hadn't practiced it properly enough times. And so, it was something that I didn't put much effort into learning. And man, I tell you, after these experiences, it was something that I was like, okay, we really have to figure this out because we want to go to sleep.
I enjoyed our night there very much. I just wish that would have made the experience so much better.
Yeah.
The gear, I cannot stress that the gear that we get from the places we get it from, and y'all know, as we said in the video before, if you haven't seen it, about that we be getting our gear from garage sales, discount sections, all kinds of places where we're getting deals on this, or we're getting deals on the gear that we get. But we also get gear that is highly engineered. So it has so much the gear that we get has so much capabilities. I mean, the jacket you have on is so highly engineered to protect you from rain and to keep you insulated even though it's thin, to be compressible. I mean, the
Arc'teryx, holla at your boy.
I I know I opened up a bag the other day and found a loop somewhere or found some kind of pocket or some sort of feature on it, and I was like, "That was there?" There's really I'm seriously still finding stuff on bags, clothing items that I didn't know how to use. I didn't know why it was there. So many carabiners you can clip everywhere. So many zippers you can unzip. So many pouches you can add. So many, I'm thinking, so many pockets you can zip open to ventilate your jacket. I don't know. Just random features that are built into the gear that we use, and tents are one of those things. There are gear loops everywhere. You know, there are specific ways to stake out your tent that can make it stronger, some of which you'll need if it's more windy or less windy situations. You don't always need to go so far. Different techniques for doing it when you don't have great ground. This just felt like a lesson in understanding the mega capacity that this gear has to do its job.
Yeah,
So
understanding your gear and its limitations.
its limitations and its expansiveness, though, is kind
Yes,
of my point. So it's like, yes, there's one end of the spectrum where it's limited, but then there's the other end of the spectrum where we're not even using the things that it can do. And I'm
right.
like, is there a way to make this better? Is it me or is it the gear? I've asked that question a lot of times. Is it
Mhm.
me or is it the gear? Sometimes it's either or.
Yeah. See you soon.